Welcome to Civil Dissent. These podcasts are about you. Ticia and Ron are speaking as citizen activists responding to the explosive conditions of our times that affect us all. In the spirit of the fairness doctrine, we will air conflicting views and you will determine what is valid. We will provide you with leads and contacts to government, business, community organizations, and more. And you take the action. In democracy, information and participation are key. Use your key, your voice, for a better world. Ticia and Dr. Ron have each traveled to more than a dozen countries and have studied political science, anthropology, and communications. We differ on our views, but we agree that our friendship is more than important than our differences. We hope you feel the same. Now, without further ado, Ticia and Ron on Civil Dissent.
Well, hello again, everybody. This is Ron Haben, and I'm here with my friend, Leticia Bauza, and today we're going to be talking about portions of AI. It's a huge topic and timely, and we will begin with some outstanding thoughts from Leticia.
Well, at a time when, to quote a friend, we need to seek the objectivity and observations of scientists, the hearts of poets, the vision of painters, the balance and harmony of musicians, the wisdom of philosophers. What we're doing is completely the opposite, particularly in diplomacy and military actions. This was a quote from the book of a friend called Global Healing, Thinking Outside the Box by Vipin Mehta. That caught my attention this particular day.
Okay. Well, similarly, I came across an article that touched me, and the subject is policing disinformation, and it reads briefly as follows. The Facebook page in Slovakia called Dendy, which means I'm from the village, trumpeted a debunked Russian claim last month that Ukraine's president had secretly purchased a vacation home in Egypt under his mother-in-law's name. A post on Telegram, later recycled on Instagram and other sites, suggested that a parliamentary candidate in the country's coming election had died from a COVID vaccine, though he remains very much alive. A far-right leader posted on Facebook a photograph of refugees in Slovakia, doctored to include an African man brandishing a machete. As Slovakia heads towards an election on this coming Saturday, the country has been inundated with disinformation and other harmful content on various social media sites. What is different now is a new European Union law that could force the world's social media platforms to do more to fight it, or else face fines of up to 6% of the company's entire annual revenue. The law, the Digital Services Act, is intended to force social media giants to adopt new policies and practices to address accusations that they routinely host and through their algorithms popularize corrosive content. If the measure is successful, as officials and experts hope, its effects could extend far beyond Europe, changing company policies around the world and even in the United States. And very briefly, I would say that that kind of disinformation and hate speech, to me, sounds a little bit like the old legal dictum in the United States. You've got all the freedom in the world, but do not yell fire in a crowded theater. In other words, your freedom extends to about the end of my fist. And so this is very much in play. Let's see what Europe does, and it may inform the United States and the rest of the world. We shall see, but it's a burning topic. Leticia?
Well, I think it's particularly important considering the volatility at the moment and the situation that's putting pressing demands on NATO and the United States. My concern is that this is all this AI technology is being extended perhaps prematurely to the military. Now, I understand if we don't do it, the thought is, well, the Chinese will still do this and the Russians will still do that. And though I understand the benefits, especially, DARPA's technological advances, they now have a dog-like that carries equipment, which has been out for a while. They can locate bombs and mines using technology. They have drone surveillance. They have a number of things that are extremely beneficial, but at the same time very lethal. Despite the fact that on the good side, they have bionic-type limbs for those that have been injured and exoskeletons for enhancing the strength of soldiers. What concerns me is that all of this, though developed beneficially, quote, it still has been developed by the Silicon Valley values of move fast and break things, fake it until you make it. And it concerns me that not enough thought has at all been given not only to the legality, but the ethics of what's in question here.
I've recently seen a video, and I think it might have been 60 Minutes, but one of the legitimate television networks, I think CBS, and they showed a flight pattern and the latest technological bombers that we have, and they were interviewing one of the pilots in this group. The pilot turned out to be the wingman, or the second plane. The first plane was unpiloted, and this was a brand new version of AI. And the pilot said, this just feels really weird. But they were accompanying an AI plane. Now, this one landed successfully, thank goodness, and I'm sure most of them do. There was one incident, and I'm not certain it was AI, but recently in the news, we did have an American pilot bail out of a plane that just kept on going on automatic pilot, at least, and it crashed. Fortunately, no one was aboard at the time. But, this and AI in automobiles with driverless cars, we've got to be very, very, very careful and err on the side of conservatism, because this could get out of hand really easily. And the moral dilemma might be this. I know during the Vietnam War, the bomber pilots for the United States didn't have the same post-traumatic stress syndromes that the rank and file foot soldiers did, because they were just seeing the war from the heavens, not seeing nearly as much damage that they were doing. Now, what happens when there are no armies, there are no piloted aircrafts, and are you guilty of some sort of moral mistake or deprivation if you're pushing buttons, if you're just ordering or even allowing AI, perhaps say from as far away to the United States to Afghanistan or Ukraine? What is the moral implication of that? And we can obviously see if there are no troops involved, and if there's no no personal accountability, we get into some very interesting moral quandaries, and perhaps no one is clean at any level. But Letitia, you take it from here.
Well, I mean, I just think that the necessary questions have yet to be asked at each phase of development. For instance, I think that they has to be focused on how are these things being trained? How are these things being tested? How are these things being deployed? Because at the moment, I think we're in a very precarious situation. I mean, I think it's necessary for us to militarily develop things, but the type of training, testing, and deployment, and how much information is actually shared with the general public, I think has to be thought out much more carefully. Not only that, but quite frankly, we're developing all of this sophisticated technology for airplanes and drones, et cetera, which is very expensive. It creates jobs. I understand that. However, the Russians are doing something, I think, perhaps more not just economical, but strategically decisive, which is they're placing their emphasis on jamming technology. And if they are anywhere near successful, it means that we will see more of our essentially billion-dollar planes going down like kites, more of our drones, no matter how big the swarm is, being jammed and going down like snowflakes. So I think that a lot of the technology has to be rethought in terms of what's put into it, why, and how much is shared with the public.
You know, there's some who say the U.S. is actually behind on the latest AI technology in terms of military capability. For example, we've leased a lot of our power and control, in this case, to Elon Musk, where he controls the satellite technology going into Ukraine, and he can decide to disable the system in certain areas or not. He could speak to Putin privately and cordon off electronically some of the Ukrainian abilities to, say, bomb a fleet in the Black Sea. And recently, the United States Space Force, a new one of the new armed forces, they have signed an agreement with Elon Musk to create something called a shield or a star shield, so that rather than Starlink, it's a separate contract where he will guarantee in writing that this shield will be a protector of the United States in space. The Defense Department hasn't developed this. We've allowed individual entrepreneurs in our system to develop it. And who knows, these entrepreneurs might turn on us real quick if there's money to be had on the other side, as in speaking to Russia, speaking to China. The Defense Department has not been doing this nearly as much as our permitting private enterprise to do it for us. That's kind of a lazy way to proceed. Letitia?
To tell you the truth, I'm even more concerned with the fact that Sophia, which is an AI robot, spoke to the United Nations, prompting international development. I mean, Sophia, as technologically advanced as she may be with her AI, has no sensory experience, in fact, has no empirical experience, and yet the United Nations is actually listening to a robot that yet really has to develop a sense of morality. I mean, people are meaning-making machines. Robots, we don't know what meaning they give to the information that we provide them. That is highly dangerous in a militarily volatile state that we happen to be in at the moment. If corporations are considered persons, then what rights are we going to give AI robots legally?
Yeah, that's very difficult. It's a hard question because it involves where does humanity end and machine begin? If it's a human idea on a weapon, or to release an atomic whatever, or shoot off a missile in a particular direction, with AI having its own capabilities to make decisions, is it the human or is it AI? Or could AI change its own mind in mid-flight, for example? This is brand new. Obviously, legally, the laws have not and probably can't keep up with the rate of change in what we're dealing with in the military aspects. And recently, all the tech giants of the industry, people like Zuckerberg and Gates, and the other heavyweights that you know, including Elon, testified in front of a congressional committee, and they said afterwards it was like teaching new constituents, or the Congress, whose average age is 66. I don't want to be ageist about it, but it was like teaching them 101. And that's not to be a knock on them. It's their life story, and they've been busy. But the fact is that they may be ill-equipped to make the laws. And what's curious about it is all the heavy hitters, all the billionaires are actually asking, and this is unique as far as I know, please regulate our industry, please. And that's counter to every economic textbook that I've ever read. But here it is. The biggest, hottest industry in the country is saying, please come in and regulate us because we don't fully know what this can do. Well, I think it's a good time to take a breath and be at ease. And we'll be back with Civil Dissent right after this. Welcome back to Civil Dissent. Before we continue, I do want to mention a few friends of ours. One is there's a terrific podcast produced here in Orlando, and there are many. This one is by our friend Peter, and it's called Scotch and Good Conversation. And we strongly urge you to check it out. It's really a lot of fun. I would be negligent in the extreme if we didn't shout out about where our production is being done. It's at Castle Door Studios in fabulous Winter Park, Florida. And if anyone wants music recorded at the very, very highest level, or even a program like this, check out Castle Door Studios in Winter Park. You will be very pleased. We also want to thank San Julian Cafe. It's been very helpful and nutritious to each one of us, and our good announcer friend Tom Saunders. And now we're going to return to Letitia.
Well, as we were talking about the difference between AI and robots and human beings, it's interesting that a company called Cortical Labs has developed a dish brain, combining neurons and chips, creating a synthetic biological intelligence, which increases the efficiency of chips. Now, the Japanese have been working on this for a long time, I would say more than a decade. But it's interesting that Cortical Labs apparently has accomplished this. This makes it even more dangerous when one thinks that this will, in all likelihood, be integrated into the military. The reason I say that is because there's no way, as within Frankenstein, knowing where these biological neurons came from or who they came from. It's very, very concerning because it goes again to the question of, to me, spirituality in some sense. I mean, to go back to the fact that experimentations are being done genetically on animals so that they can produce organs for human beings, when in fact no one knows at what point something becomes human, depending on the DNA in its development and the percentages that are involved. Now we're dealing with, again, the combining of neurons with chips. I mean, I really think that you have to get bioethicists involved much more and publicly, because what we have here, it seems, is a rise of techno-religion. In fact, apparently in Austin, Texas, a church used AI to prepare a sermon. I mean, how sad is that?
I'm not sure that parishioners would know the difference.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
If you've ever been to some of them, they've been pre-scripted already. This may make things a little easier, and maybe we'd all have to be teachers to see if they were cheating, just like a high school student. But well, there are many scenarios that come to mind, but one in particular, to use AI militarily. Obviously, Pentagon and Russia and China and other participants would be doing war games, either around a table or in real practice with, say, dud missiles. And you can predict to some extent what an enemy might do if they launch first or if we launch first. And obviously, they do as many scenarios and practices as they can. However, with AI and independent judgment, could we really predict what an AI missile or drone or whatever would do when really confronted with an enemy AI? It's going to be making its own decisions up there. Already we have air to air missiles that can fire at airplanes or even Chinese balloons from several hundred miles away. Now, if the decision is independent of humanity, and there's a second-by-second split-second decisions being made by independent craft. Well, it's out of our control, and I don't think you could design that many variables in a war game to keep humanity safe. That's one nightmare that comes to mind.
Well, I mean, the Navy is already developing drones that are submersible, that work on the surface, and the theory behind it is to protect our ships. The Air Force is working on the swarms and the reconnaissance and decoys. I mean, all of it is necessary, but I think also necessary is more information on or intelligence on what the Russians and the Chinese are doing, etc. I mean, there's such a thing as called a black box where it's a concept where we don't even know how the computers are coming to their decisions. I mean, generative AI is based on machine learning from other machines. We really don't know just how reliable what they're learning is and what machines they may necessarily be learning from. So I think there's a lot of concern that with the idea of transhumanism, which is people becoming more and more, I think, accustomed to the idea of having artificial limbs. I saw some months ago at the Orlando Museum of Art an exhibit that was put together for children. And one of the very first things was a board that showed a child with a prosthetic limb riding a bicycle. Then on the table were cards, and the children were asked to write what they would like changed about themselves. I think that's already beginning to implant in children the idea that they can enhance themselves. And that is a very concerning element to me.
Oh, sure, because it would detract from a child's sense of security and self-image, and the responsible parent, without doubt, would say, "Honey, you're perfect just as you are. Let's go home." We're very, very, very lucky and blessed to have you just as you are, because you're perfect. So
going back to the military for a moment, there's
Sure.
no question that they use facial recognition in trying to locate terrorists, etc. However, this whole concept of facial recognition is really being extended a bit too far. The Mozilla Foundation, which tracks this kind of information, has found that car companies, especially the newer electric car companies, are putting in information that can identify the driver's face ostensibly to be able to wake him up if he's falling asleep, to be able to send emergency help if he's having a heart attack. However, it also apparently includes that a passenger implicitly implies to be photographed. And that photographing apparently does not exclude any sexual act you may have in your car or transporting of illegal aliens or anything else that you may be held accountable for. That starts to become very dangerous. There's a particular book written by a New York Times reporter called Your Face Belongs to Us. And it's based on the development of a company called Clearview AI, which apparently has accumulated some more than 30 million photographs or more of individuals without their consent, whether they're buying at a grocery store, whether they're at a pharmacy. I mean, a number of places. This is extremely invasive.
I think that this sounds to me like a discussion that will begin and end with, oddly enough, the invention of the wheel, or the invention of the printing press, or the invention of the telephone. Who is running it, and for what purpose? We don't know yet. AI is really, really good and really, really bad. To be continued. And I guess it'll have to be continued at another episode because we are just about out of time. So
I'd just like to mention a couple of books that people might want to check out. And one of them, again, is Your Face Belongs to Us by Kashmiri Hill, who is a New York Times reporter. Another one will be Global Healing, which I quoted from earlier, which is Thinking Outside the Box by Vipin Mehta. I think they may be important books, along with one called Dark Eon by Joe Allen. Well,
Tisha and I would like to thank you very much again for listening to Civil Dissent. If you agreed with a view you've heard today, or if you have thoughts of your own, go to our website, Civil.Senate.gov, and you'll find references where you can make a real difference in this world. So please take action, and we're going to see you next time on Civil Dissent. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to Civil Dissent. If you agreed with a view you've heard today, or if you have thoughts of your own, go to our website, Civil.Senate.gov, to find references where you can make a real difference. Take action, and see you next time on Civil Dissent.